11 hours, 22 minutes, Coordinated Universal Time.
Hey, how you doing? This is Tom, and this is Tom's Radio Room Show, and we're back. Yep, pain levels down to about 2 out of 10 with some just over-the-counter medicine, so we're hanging in there. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to go back to analog, what I call analog radios. Now, of course, in these standalone radios, there are analog radios which just have analog circuitry, analog tuners, and there are more modern digital radios, standalone radios, which have a microprocessor that does the tuning and filtering and stuff like that. So you could call that the fact that they're analog and digital radios in those standalone radios. But nowadays, when I talk about analog radios, I'm classifying both analog and digital standalone radios as analog radios. Means the standalone, you have to manually tune the knob and stuff like that, as opposed to the modern day digital radios, which are, let me see if I can find one right here. There's one right here, which are these little boxes or dongles, TV dongles, that are, there's no tuning dials or volume controls or anything on these. It's all done with your computer. So I've been spending a lot of shows on these guys here, those both the little guys like this, the TV dongle ones, and today I thought I'd go back to what I'm calling the analog world, which is these standalone radios, shortwave radios, AM, FM shortwave radios. Some have long wave, some have air bands. This is my favorite. It's the Grundig 800. I've been looking for one of these for years, and the thing you have to watch out, and I've had a couple of questions about getting one of these, people wanting to get one of these, is initially there were a lot of problems with these radios from Grundig, this 800 model. And they had to go through a couple iterations to get the bugs out. So some of those initial ones are still out there, and people have been passing them around. So you got to be careful that you don't get one of those. And the other thing that people have been asking me is, why not get the little brother, the 750, instead of the 800, so it's not so bulky, it's newer technology and stuff like that? Well, once again, there's a trade-off, because in the fact that this is bulky, it's got a lot of electronics in it. And my understanding was that it was designed by some Drake engineers. Drake, who made, back in this time frame, made amateur radio equipment. They set off and designed this premium, I'll call it, radio for Grundig. I'm not sure how much that is true, but that's what I've read. Also, when Grundig was having problems with some of these initial production runs of the 800, they were using the Drake service center to repair them and to modify them. So it's another indication that Drake and Grundig were hand in hand in building and designing and repairing this radio. So this morning I turned it on. It's hooked up to my MFJ, I still can't talk after the surgery, MFJ vertical antenna. It's a 31-foot vertical antenna. The thing is, it's not really fancy. It seems to work pretty darn good. Now, I say that because I'm comparing it to my other shortwave radios, which are in-fed shortwave radios. I have not, because it's set up in another room. I have never compared that vertical antenna to my GRV5, I think that's what it's called. horizontal antenna, which is 102 feet long. I've not compared those two side by side, but using the vertical antenna versus the in-fed antennas that I have coming into my workshop, the vertical antenna seems to blow the in-feds away. Now, the big advantage the in-fed has is the tip of the antenna wire is 31 feet in the air, where my in-feds are about 15 to 20 feet in the air horizontal. So it's kind of apples and oranges comparison, but that MFJ antenna works great for me. It sells for, I think, $99, this particular one that I have. And it's basically a telescopic tube, fiberglass. It's really made for field use, where you go out in a field and you extend it up and you listen to shortwave, or you transmit. It can be used as a transmitting antenna with a tuner, or it's cut, meaning the length in the interface box is cut for, I think, 40 meters. So you can use it there without a tuner box to hook it to your transmitter. Otherwise, you have to have a tuner box, matching box, to tune the antenna. And it's just a telescopic pole with 31 feet or so of a piece of wire. That's all it is. I mean, if you could find access to the telescopic pole for a reasonable price. Now, if you go looking on the internet for these telescopic poles, they're going to cost you almost as much as the full MFG antenna from MFJ. Full MFJ. Did I say that twice? Maybe it's some medicine. I don't know. Where was I? So what you get with the MFJ antenna is you get the telescopic pole, you get the antenna wire itself, and you get a coupler box, a matching box that couples the antenna to your coax so that the impedance is matched, and that's set for 40 meters. Shortwave listening, you don't have to worry too much about that impedance. It's important, but it's not as important as if you were transmitting, so you don't really need an antenna tuner box to use it for receiving only. So anyway, that's the antenna. It's working good. It's about 10 feet from my workshop, so it's away from my workshop, away from the RF noise, and of course it's 31 feet in the air at the tip. Anyway, so that's an antenna. So this morning,
This is radio station WWB, Fort Collins, Colorado, broadcasting on internationally allocated standard carrier frequencies of 2.5, 5, 10, 15, and 20 megahertz, providing time of day, standard time interval, and other related information. Inquiries regarding these transmissions may be directed to the National Institute of Standards and Technology, radio station WWB, 2000 East County Road 58, Fort Collins, Colorado.
So you can see WWV is coming in very good. I'm even getting, this is the one out of Colorado you just heard, and I'm even getting the one out of Hawaii on the same frequency. They do their announcements slightly either later or before. I think before the Collins, Fort Collins station does, so you can hear both.
Coordinated Universal Time.
Okay, I think we missed, and the one in Hawaii has a lady's voice, as opposed to the one in Fort Collins, which has the male voice. Also, I heard earlier, about 15 minutes ago, when I was tuning up the radio, the lady voice was giving a solar weather report, which is, of course, important to us ham and shortwave listeners. So I never noticed that before. And that signal is really strong. It's about an S4 on this radio. Of course, that's S meters are all relative, depending on what radio you got and how they're set up. So It's not real meaningful. So let's just quickly.
Coordinated Universal Time.
Boy, he's talking a lot today. Either that or I'm talking a lot and the minute goes up pretty fast. I'm just going to quickly go through a couple of these shortwave stations that Gil's put out on his listing. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. Typically, here in Florida, reception in the morning is best on the lower bands. So we're going to pick something in the lower band like Radio Habana. Radio Habana should come in very strong to me because it's not that far from me in Florida. And it's at 6 megahertz. So let's just punch that in. See if we get in. Nope, nothing there this morning. Now, of course, as you all know, shortwave broadcasting is very intermittent, uncontrolled, whatever you want to call it, especially like stations like the Radio Habana. So they broadcast during different times during the day. Let me see if he says, Gilles says that it broadcasts from 100 UTC to 700 UTC, and right now it's 7:35 here in Florida, which means about 11:35. So it's kind of early for that station to be on the air, according to this. Now, channel radio I should get. I usually don't listen to it on 6020, but I'll try it. No. There's something there. That sounds like it's almost single sideband. 6025. That sounds familiar. There it is. That's 6.026, which is not on Gil's listing, which doesn't surprise me. Down here in Florida, we get a lot of Spanish stations on shortwave. Most of them are not even listed in any of these shortwave frequency list because they don't bother to register, shall we say. So that's at 6.260. It's half scale on the S meter, coming in loud and clear. Spanish, I don't understand Spanish. Although, I'm going to babble a little bit here, so bear with me. I went to McDonald's yesterday. I only go there occasionally when I'm desperate, but I went to McDonald's to get something to eat. And I was greeted by 2 employees, and they wanted me to go over and use this kiosk, which they recently installed in our store. It's been there for about a month, and I ignore it. I don't like dealing with computers when I order food. But they insisted that I go over and start using it. So they started showing it to me. And the first thing that comes up is, do you want English or Spanish? And I'm like, this is really a waste of my time, so I'm going to waste their time. And I says, I don't know how to speak Spanish. Let's try Spanish, and maybe I can learn Spanish. And at about that time, I was pretty loud because I was pretty upset that they drugged me over there. So anyway, I made a big deal out of it and gave them a hard time. And then I got to the end, and it says, do you want to pay by cash or do you want to pay by credit card? Well, when I go to McDonald's, I don't like to use a credit card. It's just a little leery of using a credit card at McDonald's. So I said, I want to pay by cash. And they go, well, that doesn't work. You'll have to go over to the regular cashier to order your meal again. I was like, yeah, brother. Oh, well, anyway, sidetrack there. Let's see what other station we might be able to get this morning. Let me try Trina Radio on the frequency I normally get it on, which is 9570. 9570. Enter. Whoa. Jammer. You got a jammer there. I don't know if it's actually a jammer or just some of my electronics in this room. But boy, forget that. Okay, I've babbled enough, and my tooth's starting to bother me again. Oh, the other thing I wanted to tell you is, now that my good friend Manuel fixed up a oscilloscope for me, and we're talking about the Grundig 800. The one problem I have with this Grundig 800, when I bought it used and got a terrific deal on it, the AC adapter he had was not the one that came with the radio. And if you tried to listen on shortwave, there was just no way you can listen on shortwave. It's just solid noise. So for a couple of shows back when I got this radio, I was doing an attempt to get an AC adapter that would work on this radio and not have that noise problem on shortwave. It works great, which is what I'm using it on right now. It works great on a lab power supply, a heavily filtered lab power supply. But all the switching power supplies I have just create too much noise. So now that I have a working oscilloscope, I'm going to pull out those adapters, those wall adapters, and look at what the signal looks like and see how much noise I've got. Another thing I attempted to do and didn't follow through on it was I have fixed power supplies that are they're made for powering amateur radios. So they put out 12 to 13.8 volts. Constant. That's all they put out. They're not a variable. The other thing I was going to tip to do is I got one of those converters, I'll call it, which converts an input voltage of a certain value to an output voltage of a certain value. So you could, for instance, put in 13.8 volts from one of my little power supplies and adjust that converter so that it only puts out 9 volts, which is what this radio wants. I did some initial experimenting. I had the feeling, because, let me digress here, because the little power supplies I have that are 13 and 12 volts are regulated power supplies. So they should be pretty clean. They're normally used for mobile amateur radio equipment. So they should be pretty clean. So I was hoping I could use that converter to convert the voltage down as opposed to actually building a little circuit myself. So that's something else I want to go back to, is hook up that circuit again, using the oscilloscope, look at the output, see how much AC ripple is on the output of that converter. Matter of fact, do I have? No, I got the converter and the wires and stuff in another box, so it's not convenient for me to show you. So that's the other thing I want to do in the upcoming shows. So anyway, I'm back. I'm going to go rest now. I've babbled long enough. If you enjoyed the show, please give me a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. And thank everyone for the nice comments they sent to me about, getting better, and sorry I'm not feeling too good. Thank everyone for that. I really appreciate all the support from my subscribers and viewers. Have a great day. Bye-bye.